maths knowledge or latex knowledge. But these tools, Markdown editor, because I learned many maths colleagues knows how to write Markdown because it's quite easy to integrate latex in it to present things. So I've developed completely two web tools. One is called Markdown Slides, another is Markdown Pages. So which allow people directly write Markdowns, generate a slides, purely HTML without any additional plugins. So it's fully based on the open sourced frameworks like reveal.js, which for slides, and MathJax to display the equations and additional functions such as displaying the chemical equations and chemical structures using the rdkit.js to present the structure of chemicals. And it also support use a mermaid to generate flowchart in it. Similarly, I create the Markdown writer to generate pages, A4 page style things, so which can easily create a pages purely HTML based, A4 sized, easy to print, and like a PDF displayed page by page in the browser. So I'd like to make those two things open sourced and welcome everyone to test it. So when saving the documents, people can save the Markdown file and also save the HTML file. So the HTML file is independent, so you can directly upload it to Moodle or any other teaching platforms to present it directly as say slides or the pages, something like that. So yeah, currently I'm still working on it.
Fair enough. I see there's already been a demand for a demo for my next meetings, but
yeah,
give you
if
some
people
more
want to
time
see
to work on it.
I can provide a link of the slides, which is used our, let me just, here. No.
It definitely sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so yeah, these are the slides using the Markdown generated things. So you can very easily control it by the keyboard left and right or with the mouse cursor, and it will show a lots of interesting things. So actually my Access 25 presentation was generated directly by this, these fully accessible things. So currently I'm working on these two projects, and we'll try to finish it after summer. The slide one is already there, and I currently ask some math colleagues to test it.
Fair enough. Okay, this definitely sounds like something we might come back to in the future then.
Okay.
Okay, Christian's been developing a new version of Numbers. That's exciting. How's it going?
It's been a slog. I've been getting there. So my goal for this year was to basically start from scratch on the Numbers user interface for students, because I mean it was like 10 years old or something, specifically so that I could take care of some accessibility things that have been really awkward. So I've been working on that, hoping to release it around about a month from now. I think I've got 18th of August written down somewhere. Yeah, so the plan is just to add a lot more accessibility options. The thing that really prompted it was a student asking why they could change the background color and the text color, but not any of the other colors on the page. So like we have like warning colors and the sidebar is a slightly different color, that kind of thing. So in order to do that, I had to sort of start from scratch on the style sheet. So that's in. I did things like changing the fonts, changing the font weight, just all sorts of little bits.
Fair enough. That sounds useful. Good. And then supporting PhD students in accessible theses. PhD students, I think, often fall through the cracks. I remember when I was at York, we did a project about improving accessibility for maths PhD students, which I don't think would have happened unless I was a PhD maths student. So yeah, there's a kind of slip through the crack thing. It's nice to see there's some work being done there.
Yeah, we have it.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'll just come add a bit more on that. So, we have a student working on a project that's really to do with accessibility. It's sonification of astronomical data or something like that. And their supervisor noticed that while we have policies about accessibility of teaching material, and typically when you publish stuff, it gets processed into accessible formats, we have nothing for the thesis that a PhD student hands in. Yeah, so we're using Chiron for that to try and make something that's much more interactive as well than a paper book.
Yeah, sounds sensible. I remember it also being something that not that a PhD thesis really has a mark scheme, but the kind of general things you were meant to work on, one of them was accessibility, but everyone just kind of ignored it and went, it doesn't apply to maths in the way they go, fixed doesn't apply to maths. But that's another debate. Excellent. Luke has been managing our final waves of grades from Board to Ultra, and I guess we all need to say congratulations to it. How's that going, Luke?
Awesome. Thank you, Cordelia. Yeah, it's been pretty busy. I've recently transitioned roles in the last sort of 6 weeks, and since doing so, the two people that I used to manage have also transitioned roles. So we have 2 new people who have just started as well. So lots of turbulence, I would say, going on at the moment, and we haven't had as much resource allocated into the investigations into STEM that we want to. But a little bit later down the list, we are joined by one of our student interns over the summer, Finn, who's Finn's from the Mathematical Sciences school. And Finn and I are starting to look at some of the STEM provisioning that we've investigated in terms of that HTML conversion from that tech source. So hopefully looking to spark that up a little bit again over the summer.
Excellent. That sounds lots of change.
Yes.
There we go. David is continuing to work on LaTeX tech PDFs. Excellent. Do you have anything to add to that? And
yeah, I mean, as Frank mentioned, there's the tech user group conference is in India now. In fact, now is a workshop on tag PDF, and the conference starts tomorrow. But I'm here in Oxfordshire. So yeah, we're gradual improvements. Things get better each release. I had a very interesting session last night actually with Lewis Marler, who some of you may know is National Federation of the Blind in the States. So we at that link there's a test document we use for various things, which has got maths and some numbered equations and various things, tables of contents, which are particularly gruesome in PDF. And he went through it line by line. He's totally blind. He went through it line by line with us, because we've been mostly testing accessibility with the screen reader, NVDA mostly, and thinking this is wonderful. Trying to read a multi-line math display on a one-line braille display, for those of you probably do it, but watching somebody do it and explaining what he could actually experience was kind of a learning experience for us. So we've got more to do to make it actually usable. I mean, it validates and it passes and it ticks lots of boxes, but it's still bloody hard to use. Not least the fact that in Acrobat, the links don't work. So you arrow through to the links in the table of contents and you hit return to enter the link, and the visual view moves to the section you've said, but the damn accessibility cursor stays in the table of contents. So when you down out to the next thing, you just get the next table of contents link. So the table of contents doesn't actually work as a table of contents from the braille display. So I think that's an Acrobat bug. We're going to take it up with Adobe. We stared at the internals of the PDF. It should work. It announces to the link the link works visually, and it just doesn't work. So yeah, there's still a lot to do to actually make something that is actually accessible to, that actually works for someone who is blind, rather than just passing the boxes, which is a bit, you know, you kind of wish it was better in a way, but that's the world we live in, I guess.
Yeah, I'm always
Anyway,
surprised
that's
at the amount you learn when you actually test something with a blind person and you realise what trips people up and just how much harder work it is.
Yeah, I mean, we learnt a lot, with the screen reader. I've been using the screen reader an awful lot, which I've not used before, because I don't need it. But the braille display is so much harder. You have so much less information at any one time, So
Exactly. Norman.
you're muted.
Yep.
Yeah, still
Yeah.
muted.
At the
There we
last
go.
moment I saw that. You mentioned that it had ticked boxes, which is always great, but that wasn't very satisfactory. Was that because the box ticking wasn't meaningful enough, or were they the wrong boxes to tick?
Well, as I say, I mean, like, the box tick said that our tagging the table of contents was, met all the right PDF UA 1 and 2 standards. It didn't say the links don't work in Acropad. So
Lucky.
That's kind of and for the maths, I mean, Neil was there, who's actually generating the braille from MathCat on the call as well. So we're discussing with Lewis, like, what braille would you, when you're looking at a matrix equation. So we had, two matrices multiplied together equals another matrix. So you've got 3 separately, multi-line math blocks.
Yes.
Which you're trying to explain in a one-line braille display. So it's a question of, obviously, the accessibility just says, oh yeah, it's some braille.
Yeah.
It could say rhubarb, it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you actually want it to say, and how much information do you want at any one time? Do you want to try and get the whole display on one line? Do you want to get each matrix? It's like, what do you need to be told?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. But the impression I have is that yes, the technical validation for accessibility things is all very well, but there is a big gap between that and a usable output. And it sounds as if that is still a big chasm in terms of what to do. What would you like us to see?
It's going to be hard anyway. I mean, like, I think the screen reader, you can hope to get it as good as a human reader would get eventually. We're not there yet, but that's an aim. But with braille, it's like, what could you do? Even if you forgot braille and just wrote it in one line of English each time, how would you explain maths in 60 characters on one line at a time? It's not.
I think there's
not clear what you should do.
In one context, you'd want to say this is a matrix. This is this matrix and this matrix. In another context, you want to spell out the entries in the matrix.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it has got different modes, but it's still. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the people on this call know a lot more about this than me. But it's as Cordelia says, having somebody actually sit with you and sort of explain line by line what they could see. And I had the NVDA Braille view up, so I could see. He was saying, like, press down arrow twice and this is what you've got. And then Neil was reading the braille to me because I can't read braille. Yeah, it's a learning experience, let's say.
I have to drop off now because I have to. I have to drop off now because I have to check that my link for my presentation at TUG on Saturday is actually working. So
I guess we'll take care.
It's pretty fine.
That's me.
I think that was actually quite a good plug for TUG too. So if you're interested in LaTeX, TUG is definitely a good place to go and good playground to go play in. Just on the note of Braille, actually, that's not even touching on the fact that Braille is not standardized itself, particularly with maths, and Braille readers aren't standardized, and there's a whole other pile of non-standardization there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dylan in Aston is testing Blackboard Ultra still to ensure Blackboard modules transfer successfully. So a bit more Ultra stuff. I'm slightly conscious of time, so I might push ahead slightly. And again, another Fiona using at Southampton, also using Blackboard modules. anyone got anything to add about kind of Blackboard? I think we've kind of had quite a lot of Blackboard conversation today. Excellent. And then Sharon's using Canvas to make maths accessible there. And Quarto with so yeah, using lots of different tools all there. Does anyone have kind of anything else they want to add to anything there? Okay, in which case I'm going to hand over briefly to Catherine with a kind of project she wanted to bring up here. So off you go, Catherine.
Thanks, Cordelia. Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Catherine Bardsley from the University of Leeds. We make online programmes in our team, so fully online programmes, and there's been a debate recently about accessible language, and it all began over the word click or select, and it's blown up into all sorts of words, and I thought there's a lot of opinions flying around and different preferences for different abilities, so I just thought I'd bring it here and see if anyone's got any experience in this. So it started because our service started to use the word select as a more accessible alternative to click, but then because it doesn't always make sense in context, it's then not accessible because it's a deviation from the meaning of the word. So yeah, so that's where the discussion began, and yeah, I just thought it'd be good to get any insights that anyone has, or to maybe create a subgroup and look into it a bit further if anyone's interested. So it was just to say, hey, we're looking at this. Has anyone else, or would anyone else be interested? Thank you.
So Sharon in the chat said some of us have been asked to use select rather than click. So that's good. Has anyone else add to this conversation? Is it going on anywhere else? Or
I don't mind adding a little bit of insight into this. Catherine and I used to work in a private learning and development context, and we did purely e-learning, and we converted everything to select as well because we thought, you know, it would be more PC, politically correct. But having worked with some of our blind students over the years, and deaf students as well, I mean, they know the majority of people are going to say, watch this YouTube video. You know, we're not going to substitute that for something else, even though they can't see it. And it's the same with click versus select, which I think we had this discussion, didn't we, Catherine, about the fact that selecting doesn't literally mean that you've acted on something, because you could be selecting an option and then still have to submit. So you still have to click on something for the action to happen. So I think we're okay to kind of say click because people understand. It's like people our age understand what we mean when we say film something. I don't know if the Gen Z and below understand the same. Do they say record? But we know what we, you know, generally people know what we mean when we say film something, click on something, watch something. So I think it's acceptable and not something to worry about. Yeah.
Mm.
we've got some more stuff in the chat. Generally people using select for drop down menus, but we want a distinction from that between that and click. Yeah, I think generally the kind of school of thought that I seem to hear is it's whatever's clearest.
Yeah. That's really useful. Thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Okay, and then I wanted to give a quick update about the survey, which has now closed. And I have kind of preliminarily written up the results. The results were really interesting. It was a really interesting survey. Seeing what we got out of it. I've definitely learned a lot about kind of the group and what's going on. So I'm going to make this available. This is kind of currently a slight draft because it's not quite finished. One of the things I found very interesting was where we are from the people who answered the survey, and then I went through the mailing list and made a slight guess where we all were. If there's anyone in Wales, I'd be interested in reaching out because I seem we're kind of lacking in Wales and Northern Ireland a bit. But also we seem to very much stretch further into Europe than I thought we would. So that was one of the things I personally found quite interesting. But then it was quite interesting seeing how the groups kind of split between teaching, lecturers, staff, and learning technologists, and then kind of larger other people, and how much people view accessibility as actually part of their job. Turns out, no, most of us don't. Most of us are here for fun. Which is probably what we expected. What else was interesting? It was interesting. All the VLE stuff was actually quite interesting, particularly in light of the conversations we were having today. So we spend an awful lot of time talking about Blackboard, I feel, rightly or wrongly. And yet that kind of only makes up approximately just over a third. About 40% of people here are using Blackboard. So it does seem disproportionately to attract accessibility issues. And nearly all the complaints and comments we had on this section were all about Blackboard, and the other VLEs were all people actually complimentary about them. So I don't know what to do with that information. Another one I found interesting was actually looking at how we write documents, and there's very much a split between those who are lecturing teaching staff and the kind of learning technologists and librarians and other, as a kind of loose grouping. There's a very interesting trend about those using LaTeX to produce documents and those using more traditional word processing, such as Microsoft Word or Google Docs or things like that. So Markdown's the middle ground where we all meet and get on, apparently. What else did I want to talk about here? I will share this when I've kind of finished writing it. It's the end of the pretty pictures. There are some interesting things about what we want to do with this group too, which I will lead on to one thing in a second. I was kind of also wanting to place this more within the context of the wider higher education sector, I guess, and where we are as kind of universities and university affiliated organizations, where we are with digital accessibility. So if anyone's got anything they're kind of willing to share and put as a kind of more kind of loose state of digital accessibility in STEM education, I'd be interested in that. Does anyone have any comments on this? I appreciate you've not really been able to read it, but I will share when I've kind of finished it. That's my summer project. Thank you all for filling it in too. It was very useful to see. Okay, so then leading on from that, which is definitely more of a discussion thing, lots of people through this wanted to, there was lots of talk about meeting more or having more information sessions, particularly for newer members. I know we've had a lot of new members in the last year or so, and lots of people mentioned about how hard digital accessibility is to get started with, particularly in STEM. So I was thinking of kind of holding some introductory webinars at some point, recording. We can put them on the website and people can watch them back. I was just wondering what kind of things would people be interested in? What kind of would it be useful to do as a kind of group to have a getting started with things? So my current idea is getting started with accessibility for STEM, kind of general umbrella one, but also getting used to getting started with LaTeX, because lots of people don't use LaTeX and then suddenly they're thrown into a STEM world where we have complicated discussions about TUG and tagging and things they may not have, they might be less familiar with in terms of LaTeX. Or screen readers is another one. That one's come up a couple of times. Does anyone else have a kind of other topic they'd be interested in hearing more about?
Hi, Cordelia. I'm conscious we talked about mentoring learning texts, and we kind of started, but then, as you know, roles have changed for some people and some organizations, but Catherine and I are still here, and I'm sure Josh in Bath would be happy to be part of this group as well. So if anyone on here is a Learn Tech, oh right, so like Catherine, I wasn't sure if Fionn was one of the people who had submitted the form before.
I'll resubmit the form in the chat because that might be helpful, but do continue, sorry.
Yeah, if you want to pass me the contact details, then Catherine and I could arrange to speak to them. And in our first meeting, we kind of recorded a little segment, didn't we, Catherine? And we thought that it was a good starting point for anyone who's a Learn Tech, meaning someone who has to try and get a lot of academics in their organization to make a change, any change in the right direction. So we have one resource that we think might be useful as a starting point. But yeah, your idea of having lots of beginner videos of what do we mean by RStudio, what do we mean by Braille R, what do we mean by LaTeX, and what do we mean by tagged PDF would be quite good.
Yeah. So I've just put the link in. So if you're a learning technologist and you're looking for maybe a bit of mentoring, Lily and Catherine and Josh have kind of volunteered. So feel free to fill in that form and get in touch. Yeah, so thank you, David, for a link to learning LaTeX in general. There's anything I'm kind of missing that people think actually there would be. Another one that potentially got mentioned was kind of introduction to, I guess, for lack of a better word, dissemination, and how we can kind of spread this beyond personal side projects and kind of roll out something across a university. Would people be interested in that kind of, because there's lots of experience in this group of people communicating these ideas and pushing things through. We've got interest. That's good. And I guess the kind of flip side of this too is, are there people out there who would be willing to kind of speak at these things? So would be willing to talk about introduction to accessibility for STEM or LaTeX for non-users and things like that. Fishing for volunteers.
Talk about LaTeX at length if you wanted me to.
Yes, that's probably a good idea. Excellent. Thank you for volunteering. Anyone actually, I've got a couple of ideas, but anyone who has got some kind of feels like they've got something more to share about that idea of pushing change through and talking about improving general accessibility within a department or group. Christian, yes.
Yeah, I've done plenty on how we've improved accessibility in our department, so I could talk at length about that. I mean, I've got a whole paper about it.
Excellent, thank you. Good. People might be getting emails afterwards. Okay, does anyone, that's kind of it on the official agenda, but I appreciate we still have a bit of time. This is unusual. Does anyone else have anything they want to kind of mention, bring up, anything they're struggling with?
I was just going to say, Cordelia, we also have quite a few of our previous accessible maths recordings that maybe it will be timely to chapterize or point people to as part of that curation process, so that we can more easily find things by topic, like if someone has ever shown someone how to get started with, like Christian has demonstrated how Chiron works, etc. We could make sure we have that list in the Google site, and point them
that's
to the
actually,
specific
yeah.
timestamp. Yeah, that's a good project. We need an
So
intern,
that's-
don't we?
Yeah, we do. That would be a good intern project. That's a good idea. Yeah, and actually just getting again, this is, you're reminding me of just having a list of the demos we've had. We've had lots and lots of demonstrations in this group. But it'd be useful to have a kind of here's just the demo videos. Maybe if we could edit them out of the archive that we have.
I might be able to direct an intern towards a little bit of this, so I'll ping you afterwards.
Okay, Lily and I might be stealing your intern for a day or so. Excellent. Good. If no one else has anything else to bring up, then this will be our last meeting for this academic year. We will have another one. I'm going to say September. You can yell at me if I don't arrange it for September. So yeah, in the new academic year, and that would be fun. Actually, one last member. I know we've kind of talked about TUG a bit, and we've talked about the Digital Accessibility Conference in Nottingham. Has anyone else got kind of any fun digital accessibility related conferences, or general maths stuff coming up? I know this is the season.
Also in Nottingham, there's document engineering. It's in September, which later project that we're talking about accessibility at.
Okay, that's a useful one. I didn't know about that one. So is it in Nottingham? Sorry, do you say it's document?
It's
What's it
DocEng.
called?
I'll put a link in the
DocEng.
thingy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David.
I can find it.
Okay, in which case, thank you all for coming, and have a nice rest of the summer. And I guess we'll all come again next academic year.
Bye on.
Thanks,
Bye.
Claudia.
I'll put the link in chat.
Thank you, David.